Okay, broadcasting. Happy Friday, everyone. This is Kelly Street with Attorney Sync. I'm the marketing director for the company.
And this is Tsakalakis, one of the founders of Attorney Sync. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I am super excited to be talking about using video for marketing. I am extremely passionate about video. I love to create them. I love to figure out how to make them better, and also doing so on a budget. So we'll be talking about kind of all of those things. And so let's get started. Why do you want to use video? I think this has pretty much been talked about everywhere. We all know we should use video. It gives you authenticity. It helps you build a following. Guy, do you have anything else to add why you think people should be using video?
Yeah, I think, one, video is going to eat the web, right? Most of the content online is going in the direction of video. Internet's getting faster, connections getting faster. And so, the thing that I always think about is we're talking about marketing, especially in the context of marketing for lawyers, is coming back to what do consumers want to see? So there's only so much that you can convey and that a consumer can get from you by reading a page on your website or even a well-written blog post, or getting a picture, versus video, which gives you a lot more rich experience, a lot more understanding of what you're all about, what it's like, what it's going to be like to work with you, your personality is. Because when it's someone's trying to search for and hire a lawyer, those are the types of things that matter, right? I mean, in most contexts, when you need a lawyer, it's something serious in your life or your business. And so getting to know your lawyer, getting to know your prospective lawyer through the process of hiring, it can be achieved much more effectively when you have video. And the other thing I always say is that there's an expectation now of this stuff. So just like everything else, if you make it difficult for your next clients to get a sense of what working with you is going to be like or what you're like, you're going to create a friction there that your competition might not be doing. And so I've been seeing a lot more lawyers pulling off video, and we'll kind of talk about some of the things that we've seen that are working well.
Awesome. So what are you going to want to use video for? I would say all the things, but practically, you want to, of course, use it to address potential questions that your clients might have. If you're hearing the same things over and over again, if people are in your first initial phone call with them are asking you specific pointed questions about how a process works, make a video on that so they know before they come in and they can have an idea of what to expect and what the process of working with you is going to be like. Testimonials. This is a really great thing. If you can get a client to sit down with you, even if it's just a quick little iPhone video after you got a favorable decision for them, if you can get them to come into your office and do a more formal, more spotlight client testimonial video, those are incredibly powerful. They are like 10x what a good client review is on Google reviews. Reviews are important too, though. And then providing information, just general information. Maybe it's not a client question, but there's a new law that could affect someone, or a change that could affect in a law that could affect your particular practice area. Make a quick video about that. It can be just a couple of minutes, and then you can, just post it to your website, post it to your blog, YouTube, any of that stuff. And then I just want to make a note that we are not talking about ads here. That's kind of a whole different beast. If you're using video to make ads, awesome, go for it. But we're just kind of talking about the marketing aspect of things.
That's right. And I think that giving people a window in what the service is like that you provide. So, what makes you uniquely qualified to help? What is it that your firm does differently than other firms? I think those are all really important things that you can convey through video messaging. But again, it shouldn't be about you. Don't take your TV commercials and turn them into online videos, because no one wants to see that. And I think it's also important to remember that people have the ability to hide messages from you on social platforms and around the web. And so if you are doing commercials, don't be surprised that people start hiding those things and start unfollowing you or blocking you from their feed. So, I think it's an important thing to think about in terms of, respecting your audience, giving them something they actually care about. People are egotistical. They want to know what it is that you do for them. So, don't make videos that are focused on you. Make them focused on how you help the people that you help, how you're uniquely qualified to help, how your experience helps them and applies to their problem.
Absolutely. So you've made the video, now what are you going to do with it? There are so many places to put videos these days. First of all, I think the best place to put them is, of course, YouTube. YouTube, if you aren't aware of this already, YouTube is the second most used search engine behind Google. So people, especially millennials, younger generation, they're going to YouTube first to try to get answers to their questions before they go to Google or before they try to figure out the answer themselves or go to a professional. So if you have videos on YouTube that can answer their questions and you happen to be in their geographical area, or the case happens to be a national one, they're going to be a lot more likely to try to contact you. After that, definitely put them on your website, whether you're just embedding them from YouTube and putting them on your website or hosting them there separately. Facebook is awesome, Facebook Live especially, but be really careful about live videos. Make sure you're comfortable with it. The V on the page is for Vimeo. That's another video hosting site. The advantage to the Vimeo website, I think, over YouTube is that you can make the videos a little more private. If there is one that you don't necessarily want to share with the general population, like say you have a client who gives you a testimonial video, but they say, I don't really want this everywhere on the internet, but you can use it for one-on-one with clients. You could then put the link to that video in your email, send it to a potential client, and only the people with a video link or a specific password can view that video. So it does give a little bit of a screening process for them. Anything
Yeah, I think those are all great places. I think that I also, you might have briefly mentioned this, but I think some of the, if you did, I apologize. But the thing I like to think about for video is if you can put video in places where people are seeking information about you and your practice. So on your website, I think is a good one, bios, specific sections of your site that relate to a particular service. So all the things that we talked about earlier. So if you're doing a video on like a legislative update, maybe you have a post on your site that has accompanying video. That is the kind of stuff that gives a much more rich demonstration of your knowledge, skill, and experience in a way that just the post by itself might not. And then of course, as Kelly mentioned, social. So if you've got a following on social, if you've got specific groups, adding video there, whether it's live or recorded, it's going to get you in front of a lot more people that are actually more likely to share it with their followers. LinkedIn, I think, is a great spot to add native video content, especially if you've got, if you're a big source of your clients are going to come from other professional referrals, putting videos on LinkedIn is really, really good.
Yeah, and I think one thing I just want to say with the live videos that I didn't say when I brought up earlier is, for me, I know they're a little bit scary. It can be a little bit like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to push start and it's just going to go out to the world. But I heard this from Nicole Abboud, who, if you haven't familiarized yourself with her, she's really great and in the kind of media space for lawyers. And she said that in her experience, live videos are a lot more forgiving. People are expecting them to be a little bit rougher. They're expecting maybe that you'll pause or you won't be as polished or any of those things. So that was a good reminder to me that people aren't expecting the same quality for a Facebook Live or a Periscope, Twitter live video that they are for a recorded video.
No, I think that's a good point. I think the other thing too, when you talk about like kind of the fear of getting started and the fear of being live, talk about things that you're very comfortable talking about, and those don't only have to relate to your practice, right? So like if there are causes that you're passionate about, if there are community organizations that you participate in, if you're a coach, if you're a little league coach, something like that. So when I always come back to, I think probably because I used to be a high school football coach, but the things that you're doing in your community that you care about, that you want to showcase, those are the types of things I think you're going to find yourself less apprehensive about talking about on video versus, if trying to do some kind of like legal analysis on the fly. That's probably the type of thing, especially live, that you might want to, practice in advance. But the things that you actually care about, that you're competent to talk about, that you have an emotional connection to, I think you're going to find that it's less scary to talk about those types of things, especially if they don't relate to, actually practicing law. And people want to see that stuff, right? That's going to it's going to personalize who you are, let them know like, what kind of things you're interested in, and you're going to find people that are going to have common interests, and they're going to connect those dots of like, oh yeah, so-and-so is interested in this, I'm interested in this. It's going to develop that relationship. And then those are the types of relationships that are going to lead to referrals and future business.
So how can you make your videos better? I have been working on this one myself. So there are lots of little things you can do. First of all, of course, practice. We all know that the more you do something, the more comfortable you're going to be with it. But beyond just practicing regular videos, I actually like to use a teleprompter. I have a couple of apps that really work for me. There's one that I have on my phone that is Big VU, and one that I have on my computer, my laptop, which is NPrompt Express. They're both, they both have free versions. And if you do the paid version, they're really inexpensive, so you don't have to invest in a lot of things. But having that, the words kind of just rolling on the screen, playing around with that just kind of takes away any sort of anxiety I have about, oh my gosh, what am I going to say next? Or I forgot, or I messed up. And then, of course, speaking of messing up, I will, on videos that I will post on our YouTube or post to our website, I will sometimes do the same video 8 times because I'm not happy with it. And that's just fine. Nobody knows that I did it 8 times, except now that I'm talking about it. But you just kind of do it until you get a version where you're not picking apart every little thing and trying to get it to be absolutely perfect. Your personality is still coming through, but at least you have something where you're not messing up every 5 seconds.
I think those are all good points. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well,
I was just going to say, probably delay. Go ahead.
Your turn, Guy.
Well, I was just going to say on the practice point that I think practicing is great. I think it's important to be careful though that it doesn't get too canned. So I've noticed like a lot of lawyers when they rehearse, they overly rehearse, or they don't rehearse if they have like a script they're reading from, that kind of thing. You got to be careful with that. So I think practicing is good. I think the teleprompting thing is a great idea. I would just encourage folks to use like talking points versus trying to read a script from a teleprompter, because that's a totally different experience. And I think it's much more candid and natural and authentic, to use the thing authentic, when you do that practice. So I think how you practice matters. Don't, be careful not to get it so prepared that it just feels unnatural.
Yeah. Well, and if you're uncomfortable doing the video just by yourself, have somebody off camera or even in your practice next to you interview you, because that can kind of help create that where it's not just the camera next to you or in front of you, that somebody else is there talking to you, making you feel comfortable. For editing, I really like Soapbox by Wistia. The editing is not super advanced yet. You can kind of just edit the beginning and the end, but that's a really good, inexpensive one. You can do the full-on investment and do the Adobe editing software, but if you don't have time, if you don't want to invest that much money into it, you can find some freelancers online that will really easily and quickly be able to do some of the video editing for you.
Yeah, I would check out YouTube too. YouTube's video editing stuff for entry level is actually pretty good.
Yes, that's right. They've made a lot of improvements. I've been noticing they can change the color. You can edit or add things in. Thank you for reminding me.
Sure. Yeah, the cropping tool, like I was really surprised because the last time I think I looked at it, like their initial tool was like really bad. But recently I revisited it and I was actually pretty impressed. And the nice thing too is if you're trying to build a following on your YouTube channel, YouTube videos are going to come up in search. So I would, if it's been a while since you've looked at YouTube, I'd come back and take another look at their creative video editing tools. They've got a whole bunch of great stuff about like how to improve the quality of your YouTube videos. So take a second look at YouTube if you haven't looked in a while.
Yes. I have 5 minutes on here because I think general rule, keep the video under 5 minutes. That's usually the kind of attention span that people are going to have for the video, unless it's a really long subject and you need to explain a lot more, but 2 to 3 minutes is kind of a sweet spot.
Yeah, I'd be like 2 to 3 minutes. I think would be good. If you're doing 5, you might consider trying to break it up. I think, especially for a lot of the videos that we talked about, I'd keep them short. If you're doing more like regular kind of like almost show style where you're having like episodes, I think maybe you can go longer. And as Kelly mentioned, if you're doing interview style, I think you can go longer. But if you're doing the basic how do you help type things for your website, just keep in mind that people are not going to stay long. And the nice thing too is with a lot of the tools, Wistia, YouTube, Vimeo, they'll provide you video analytics. And so if you can go look at the analytics, and if your audience is dropping out in the first minute, it's time to rethink what you're doing time wise. If you're getting if your audience is engaged for longer, maybe you can push the envelope, but listen to what that audience is telling you through those video insights.
Yes. Last in this, for tools or equipment. So I have my whole video, everything that I use for video cost about $100 total. So I have a lavalier mic. You can look that up on Amazon or Google or anywhere. And it was a $20 little microphone I got on Amazon. I clip it to my collar, I plug it into my computer. That helps the sound quality so much. So you really just kind of hear my voice, or if my hair is kind of in my face, then you would hear that. But you hear my voice and you don't hear the background noises. I also have little light stands. I was just using a selfie light, but I just invested in a couple of little light stands. They were $25 each on Amazon as well. And in the email that we'll send out afterwards, I can put links to those in there as well for you guys so you can see what I'm using. And those little lights just make all the difference. If I am in a room that doesn't necessarily have a lot of natural light, then you're going to look grainy, you're going to look kind of just dark. If you have natural light, awesome, take advantage of that. But if you don't, I would say the little lights are great. And then I just use my computer generally for recording. I do also have the iPhone X, which has an amazing video, amazing on there. So I will use that, but I just think it's a little bit easier, especially if I'm doing a presentation / video, to use my computer. So that's all I've got for those. SEO for video. Okay, so how can you make your videos better? How can you make them pop up more? How can you get more interaction? All of this stuff. There are lots of little things you can do here. I'll touch on a few, and then I'll let Guy take over if he's got some advice as well. First and foremost, I would transcribe your video. You can use pretty inexpensive services like rev.com. If you're hosting on YouTube, again, they have a free option to do this, but you kind of want to look through the transcription that they create to just make sure it's not garbled language and that you got everything across, because your law firm, your name, all that stuff will be spelled just wackadoodle, and you want to make sure that that's all correct. And then having a good video thumbnail. So if you're not aware of that, thumbnail is just what you see right away before you click play. Just having your face as the thumbnail, it's okay, but it's not going to grab people's attention. So I use a free, or they have a paid option, of course, but a free kind of graphic design tool called Canva. And they have a specific layout that you can use for YouTube thumbnails. So I just grab one of those, pop my picture in, a screenshot, pop the title in for the video, and upload that into YouTube right along with the video. Works perfect. It is awesome. And if you would do the free version, then it's also free. And then, of course, sharing it everywhere you possibly can. Guy, do you want to talk about metadata and keywords and all that good SEO stuff?
Yeah, I guess I would start with this. There's a lot to think about with video and SEO. Phil Nottingham actually has a great post on the Moz blog that I would say go check that out, because there's more to it than I think just even like the metadata, but I'll kind of break down some of the big things to think about. The first thing is, just like everything else you do online, you got to think about what your objective is. And so in the context of SEO, there's a kind of a big question of, are you trying to get a page on your site with video to appear in search results? Or are you trying to get a video to appear in search results, maybe hosted somewhere else? And that might not seem intuitive the way that I just said that, but if you check out the post, I think it'll make more sense to you. But the short version is that if you want a page with video to rank, I would suggest that you use something like Wistia, which will help you with a lot of the markup and behind the scenes stuff. So metadata, and they'll take care of a lot more of that tech stuff. Host it on a page on your site or in a post or somewhere, whatever you want to appear prominently. Optimize that page like you would regularly. Optimize the video itself. Use the Wistia support stuff, for lack of a more technical way of describing it. And then include contextual language on the page, whether you decide to do a transcript or actually like an alternative kind of paraphrasing of what you talk about in the video, I think is also useful. So optimize the page, optimize the video on the page, optimize the actual text that might talk about some of the points that you make from the video on the page. And then obviously the second big half of this is you got to market that page. So just like everything else, you got to go out there and get that page in front of people who can actually link to and share that page. If you want, but if that's your goal, don't use don't use a YouTube embed for that, right? If alternatively, if you want to get visibility for your just the video itself, not necessarily on a page, then YouTube's fine. Google owns YouTube, so I think that wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you probably have a little bit more likelihood of seeing video results that are hosted on YouTube. But if your goal is to get your page to appear, my suggestion is to use something like Wistia and not YouTube for that. So I hope that gives you some help. But like I said, this is only a webinar, and I would do some follow-up reading. We'll include a link to it elsewhere, but the Phil Nottingham post on Moz takes care of a lot of this stuff.
Great. So ethics of video. I know that I've heard some different states have different ethical rules for video. And I know that this can be kind of a barrier for some attorneys. You don't want to put everything out there. You don't want to say the wrong thing and then have an issue come up with that. So Guy, as the resident lawyer at Attorney Sync, I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, I think, the basic thing is this: your ethical obligations apply on internet videos just like they do everywhere else. So, if you're blowing client confidences, it doesn't matter if you do it on video, on Twitter, on Facebook, or in real life. You can't do that. And I know that there's a fear of like, yeah, well, some of these rules aren't very clear, and I'm not really sure. Here, let me make it really easy for you. You can do video and not talk about client matters, not talk about the value of your legal services. So not getting on there and being like, I'm the best lawyer of all time, and you're fine. So if you're, like we talked about earlier, if you get outside of the context of promoting yourself, you're not talking about outcomes of cases, you're not talking about specific legal issues. You're talking about like, hey, this weekend I went and participated at this local community event, and here's why I care about that. You don't have to worry about legal ethic issues at all. So basic reminder: your ethical obligations apply on video, online, just like they do everywhere else. The big ones that come up relate to client communication, client confidences, communications about your services, so the advertising rules, solicitation rules, right? But the truth is, those types of videos aren't going to be that effective anyway. So if you find yourself talking about how great you are, if you find yourself trying to talk about providing specific legal advice, you're probably, not only do you have ethics problems, you probably have effectiveness problems. So I would get out of the mindset of I've got to talk about legal services all the time, and start thinking about other things that you can talk about that will help you share who you are, share your personality, and then you don't have to worry about legal ethics issues at all. So if you're kind of scared of that stuff, start just by talking about the things that you care about that don't relate to practicing law.
Perfect. A little inspiration for you guys. These are just a few things that I found that I think give good examples of either places to go to get inspiration for how you can do things correctly, or examples of lawyer videos that aren't ads, but kind of show the personality of what's going on. So I'll just kind of run through the Pazzo Goldstein one. I found that one is a really great example of a firm that has a short little video of what it is like to work with them or to go to immigration court. So perfect, just short and sweet, little overview. What's it like to deal with them? Below that one, you can see on the bottom, it says, "Don't eat your weed." That is a ridiculous video from this law firm, that they made up a little song about what to do if you get pulled over and you have marijuana on you. It does not come across as an advertisement. In the end, really, it's a little bit more of that, but it shows their personality. They like to play guitar and they like to sing, and they're lawyers and they are trying to give legal advice. So if you find yourself musically inclined, maybe consider it. If that's not the kind of lawyer you want to portray, then do your own version. So there. Mitch Jackson, he is really kind of, for me, from what I've seen, he's doing the streaming, the live video really well. And he even kind of goes by streaming lawyer. So you can kind of look at his Twitter. He does a lot of the live videos on there, and he just kind of will talk about little legal things or kind of inspirational things, but he's the one to look to for live video. And then the screenshot at the bottom was Nicole Abboud, her Leaders Love Company podcast. She has two episodes ago, she did 5 ways to use video to amplify your message. And that video is a serious little gold mine for tips and tricks to use. I would definitely check her out for some other advice on how to use video. Great. We're going to get in right about the 30-minute timeline. Thank you for sticking with us for 1 extra minute. And if you guys have any questions, I think emailing them to us would be awesome. Questions, comments, things you can do. And then I will also email out a few of the links that we talked about here and a few of the services. So thank you guys so much.